Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. The Brotherhood of the Silent Blade. Chapter 2, Brothers Bound in Blood. The rain had softened to a persistent drizzle, and the forest felt alive with the sounds of the storm's aftermath. Raindrops dripped steadily from the canopy of ancient oaks, creating a soft rhythm against the mud below. The air was rich with the smell of damp earth and wet pine, the faint scent of smoke drifting through the gloom. Sir Aldric Lorne followed Thane Varrow through the winding paths of the forest. Each step was heavy, his boots squelching in the mud. His body ached with every movement, muscles weakened by weeks of confinement protesting the sudden exertion. Yet, it wasn't just the physical strain that weighed on him. The dagger in his hand, a crude, ill-balanced thing, felt foreign, its cold hilt a reminder of the blood they had spilled during their escape. "How much farther?" Aldric asked, his voice rough and low. "Patience, knight," Thane replied, his tone carrying an infuriating ease. He moved with the silent confidence of someone who belonged to the shadows. "You'll get to sit soon. Maybe even eat. If you're lucky." Aldric's stomach growled faintly at the mention of food, but he kept his focus ahead. He'd learned quickly that Thane was a man who spoke only as much as he deemed necessary, and never more. The forest grew darker as they pressed on, the towering trees forming a dense canopy that swallowed the last traces of light. Shadows danced between the trunks, the occasional rustle of leaves or snap of a twig setting Aldric's nerves on edge. He gripped the dagger tighter, his instinct for danger awakening. Without warning, Thane stopped and held up a hand. "Stay here," he said softly, his voice barely louder than the rain. "Why?" Aldric demanded, his tone sharp. He hated the vulnerability of being left alone. Thane turned, his grin visible even in the dim light. "Because if you walk into camp looking like that, they might put a blade in you first and ask questions later. Let me handle this." And before Aldric could protest, Thane disappeared into the shadows, his movements so quiet it was as if the forest itself had swallowed him. Aldric was left standing in the gloom, the sounds of his own breathing loud in his ears. He glanced around, the stillness of the forest now oppressive. Then, the snap of a twig. Aldric spun, dagger raised, his heartbeat thundering in his chest. From the darkness, a figure emerged, a man, tall and lean, his leather armor blending seamlessly with the shadows. His angular face was framed by black hair dampened by the rain, and his piercing blue eyes regarded Aldric with open suspicion. "You must be the stray Thane mentioned," the man said, his voice as cold and sharp as the sword strapped across his back. "He didn't say you'd be armed." Aldric didn't lower the dagger. "And you are?" The man stepped closer, the weight of his presence filling the space. "Malrik de Roux, leader of the Brotherhood. If Thane brought you here, he must think you're worth something." "I'm not so easily convinced." Before Aldric could respond, Thane reappeared from the shadows, his grin wide and unapologetic. "Relax, Malrik. He's with me." Malrik's icy gaze lingered on Aldric for a moment longer before he stepped back and motioned with his head. "Follow me." Aldric hesitated, but Thane nudged him forward. "Come on, knight. You've come this far. What's a few more steps?" The forest seemed to change as they walked. The air grew warmer, the faint smell of smoke now unmistakable. As they entered a clearing, Aldric's gaze swept over the scene before him. A camp sprawled across the space, rough but functional. Tents made of mismatched fabric dotted the area, arranged haphazardly around several small fires. Figures moved among the tents, some sharpening blades, others tending to gear or speaking in low tones. Every eye turned toward Aldric as he entered, their stares heavy with curiosity and suspicion. "This is your army?" Aldric muttered to Thane, his voice low. Thane chuckled, the sound light and carefree. "Army's a strong word. Think of us as specialists." "Strays," Malrik added bluntly. Men who've been broken by the world and decided to fight back. One of the figures, a wiry man with fiery red hair and a lopsided grin, approached. His leather armor was patched and weathered, but the twin daggers at his hips gleamed with deadly purpose. He looked Aldric up and down, his grin widening. "So, this is the night," the man said, his voice carrying a teasing lilt. "You don't look much like one anymore." Aldric's grip on the dagger tightened, but before he could respond, the red-haired man held up his hands in mock surrender. "Easy there, big guy. Name's Jory Kestrel. Thief, charmer, and occasional heartbreaker." "I don't need a thief," Aldric said curtly. Jory laughed, the sound loud and unrestrained. "Everyone needs a thief eventually. You'll see." "Enough," Malrik said sharply, cutting through the exchange. He stepped closer, his gaze hard and unyielding. "You've been brought here for a reason, Aldric. If you want to stay, you take the oath. Otherwise, you leave. Simple as that." Thane stepped in, his tone more relaxed. "He's been through hell, Malrik. Let the man eat first. Then we can talk oaths." Without waiting for a reply, Thane guided Aldric to one of the fires. Jory followed, grabbing a bowl from a nearby pot and thrusting it into Aldric's hands. "Eat," Jory said with a grin. "You'll need your strength." The stew was simple but rich, its warmth spreading through Aldric's chest as he ate. Around him, the camp buzzed with quiet activity, the occasional burst of laughter breaking the tension. He felt their eyes on him, but he focused on the meal, letting its warmth ease the cold ache in his bones. When the bowl was empty, Thane reappeared, leaning casually against a tree. "Feeling better?" "Marginally," Aldric admitted. Thane nodded toward the camp. "This is the Brotherhood of the Silent Blade. We're the men who've been cast out, betrayed, and left for dead. But instead of giving up, we fight back. From the shadows." "And you think I belong here?" Aldric asked, his voice quiet. "I think you've lost everything that mattered to you," Thane said, his grin fading. "And I think you're looking for a reason to fight again." Malrik reappeared, his sharp gaze settling on Aldric. "If you're staying, you take the oath. No exceptions." Aldric stood slowly, his jaw tightening. He thought of the keep, the chains, and the betrayal that had shattered his life. And he thought of the faint spark of purpose that had begun to stir within him. "Fine," he said, his voice steady. "Tell me what I need to do." Thane's grin returned, wide and mischievous. "That's the spirit, knight. Welcome to the Brotherhood."